Hi everyone, how's everyone doing here today? Thank you for watching. Got some nice snowy weather out here. You can't really see from this angle, and one of the drawbacks from always doing these videos outside is sometimes you have to contend with the bad weather. At the moment it's not really that bad. It's relatively chilly up, but still pretty comfortable. The upside is not too many people come around the parks. So, anyhow, recently we had the special election for the congressional seat in New York in District 3, and that was between the Democratic candidate Tom Suozzi, who used to occupy that seat before, and the Republican challenger was Mazi Pilip. Pardon me if I'm mispronouncing her name. And long story short, Suozzi won. He was victorious. And this, by the way, was also the seat that was previously occupied by Republican candidate George Santos, who, if you don't know him by now, I don't know, you really haven't been paying attention. The guy has told more lies than we know what to do with. Yeah, I've discussed it before. Just Google it, you'll see. It's just, like, what is real with this guy? Is George Santos even his real name? I don't know. I don't care. And quite frankly, I wish he would just disappear. But anyhow, this also gave one extra seat in the House for the Democrats. And early on, some of the takeaways is that the polling showed that it was a pretty tight race, which was surprising because Suozzi had a considerable amount of more experience than Mazi. And Mazi, for the most part, was, as far as I know, a newcomer. I'd never even heard of her. And watching the debate, his answers were a lot more substantive. Now, some may disagree, like Republicans, but I noticed when she answered questions, she just kind of overall like said, oh, you know, we're going to do stuff about the border, we're going to do this, that, and the other thing. It all sounds good on the surface, but there wasn't a whole lot of substance or specifics underneath it. So it's kind of like, yeah, we know what concerns you, but how are you going to solve the problems? And Tom was able to give a lot more substance answers during that debate. And it was only the one debate. Maxi, for the most part, really did interviews, at least none that I've seen. Suozzi was a lot more outspoken. And on top of that, Mazi was, by all definition, a Trump supporter. She supported him in 2016 and 2020. And in a recent interview, when asked about Trump, she didn't really want to go into it. For the most part, she described like the charges that he was going through to be politically motivated, because the reporter was asking her, like, would you still support him if convicted? And stuff like that. And she really didn't want to get into January 6th. She was mostly evasive about it. But bottom line, she kept her support for Trump. And when she eventually lost, Trump went on his stupid little Truth Social platform, and of course he didn't have anything flattering to say for her. I don't have the tweet in front of me, but for the most part he criticized her harshly, and in his usual divine narcissism, he made it seem like she didn't support me enough or she wasn't loyal to me enough. That's why she lost, which is absolutely ludicrous. The one thing is, I know Tom eventually had a considerable lead on the special election day as soon as the election was over, and they had early voting going on. But the one real key takeaway for me is that there was a lot of volunteers who worked tirelessly to get his name out there, to get voters on board, to encourage people to vote. Everything from canvassing to phone banking, sending out postcards and mailings, and just doing what they can to get people on board to vote. Okay, I did a considerable amount of volunteering myself and attended certain events. So I'm not saying that Mazi didn't do that. I don't know about her campaign. I can't speak for that. But it goes back to my original point that collectively, when Democratic voters work together, we get things done. And the reason we supported Suozzi is because we wanted a person in there to get things done. And in interviews after the election, they discovered that there were actually Republican voters on Long Island. Oh, we got a Suozzi fan there, little bird. Anyhow, there were a lot of Republican voters out there that actually voted Democrat. They voted for Suozzi because, not so much specifically about Mazi, but the GOP on the whole has shown to become more and more inept and not being able to get things done with all the chaos going on with the whole MAGA right extremists. And recently, I'll admit, they did manage to impeach Mayorkas the second time. Prior to that, they tried to bring up articles of impeachment on Joe. That failed. And the biggest thing, which was also an issue between Suozzi and Mazi, was the issues that are going on at the border. And Suozzi emphasized more that he is able to work in bipartisan ways, that he can really do business with Republicans, and he's got the track record to prove it. And, after Trump killed the border deal, through Mike Johnson, the head of the House Republicans, I don't know if that for sure helped put a nail in Mazzei's coffin, but I wouldn't be surprised if it did. Because again, Republican voters are turning away from the whole MAGA thing. The GOP still has the Trump base that's always going to support him. But, and like I said, even though polls had a tight race, we eventually came out on top. And I think our efforts, the volunteer efforts, played a big part in that. To say nothing about those that campaigned for him. They were still making calls on the day of the leading up to and on the day of the election itself. On special election day, there was a severe snowstorm, which made traveling rather difficult for those who had planned to vote on election day. And they made arrangements that would help provide rides for people to get them to the polls to be able to vote. So that's my point, which I made videos about this before, which I'll leave in the comment section. If we work collectively, we can, overcome this MAGA extremism. I'm not saying I'm opposed to every single Republican out there, but if you support Trump, that is a deal breaker. You don't belong in Congress. If you are making excuses for January 6th or trying to avoid it, or you call the accountability that Trump is facing some kind of a witch hunt, guess what? You don't belong in Congress. You don't believe in accountability. You want a dictator. If you're still believing that the 2020 election was rigged, which it wasn't, guess what? You don't belong in Congress. Okay, that means you don't believe in democracy. That means you are just a Trump loyalist, a bootlicker. You don't belong. You get voted out. That is the bottom line for me, and also for a lot of other American voters out there. So, is this a good win for the Democrats? Absolutely. It has rattled a lot of Republicans, including Trump, as I just mentioned. And it does reflect good on Joe Biden. Now, I'm not going to get into the whole 24 election here and now, but eventually I intend to, because there's a lot of things going on, and we still have several months leading up to the election itself. And more than likely, it looks like it's going to be Biden and Trump, in spite of how some of you may feel about either candidate. I know there's a lot of question about their age, about their mental capacity, cognitive issues and sort of things. And again, I'll get into that at a later time. But my point is, this is a victory for the Democrats, but it's not over. There's still a lot we have to do leading up to November in 2024. So like I said, I encourage more people to start making donations, start finding out ways how you can volunteer, not just in the presidential elections, but elections leading up to that as well, okay? Because again, it's not just about every 4 years, getting the president that you want in Congress, in the White House. It's about making sure that the people around him are also on board. And if they're not out there solving problems, if they don't have a proven track record, if they haven't shown that they're willing to do what it takes to pass laws for America, for the people, and not just one person, not cater to any type of fascist or extreme movement, then you got no business voting for them. They got no business being in Congress, okay? Let's work together. Let's keep Biden back in office for another 4 years, and let's help get things done. Because the one thing, I'll say at least this, Biden has a proven track record of getting things done. Trump does not. Yeah, he has some of his handful of accomplishments back when he won in 2016, but overall, his presidency on a whole has proven to be a failure. He has proven he wants to be a dictator. He is a fascist, and he needs to be kept as far away from the White House as possible. So, congratulations to Tom Suozzi, and let's keep getting involved moving forward. Okay, it's important that we do. Because like I said, it never ends. I know it gets a little tiresome sometimes. You want to take a break, and that's fine. But in the end, once you get a rest, you got to start planning moving forward, okay? Because it's not just about us. It's about the country as a whole. So, anyway, thank you for watching. I really hope you understand.